Welcome to CruiserCast, where we interview some of the most influential people in tourism from around the world. My name is Graham Watson, and I'm the founder of Cruiser Global. The word cruiser means a new dawn, and in 2023, we want to find out just how our guests are working towards that new dawn. Join us and subscribe to future episodes as we hope to inspire you with stories of strength and resilience in the tourism industry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of CruiserCast. Today, I am talking with Mark Young, who is the co-founder of the Perfections Group based in the United Kingdom. How are you doing today, Mark?
Yeah, I'm all good, Graham. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. It's been a while. We've been discussing having you on for a while. I'm glad we could finally make it happen. Mark and I, so the Perfections Group is also a representation company, and Mark and I work closely together, even though as competitors. But of course, it's all a big one, a happy family in the UK representation group. So Mark, let's go back to I read on LinkedIn that you right from your backpacking days right up to now. So let's have a bit of a run through of what you've been up to over the last few years.
Yeah, so my thanks for having me on. I see you've run out of guests, so it's now my
no, not at all.
My love of travel started in a way a lot of people's did, backpacking. So after dropping out of university and doing a couple of dead end jobs for a while, decided to go backpacking around Eastern Europe for a few months, just to not have to go to the real world more than anything else.
Yeah.
Then got a proper job, if you like, for a couple of years, and then decided I'd had enough of that and went backpacking around the world for a year.
Yeah.
While I decided it was time to get a real job, and decided travel was the way forward. And that's kind of how I got into the industry from there. Started off at Trail Finders. That was my first travel job, just doing sales. Nothing against Trail Finders, sorry, but it wasn't for me. And then, worked a few different companies doing sales, but always knew product was the way I wanted to go. Carried on through the product sort of manager line, worked my way up, and then ultimately got made redundant about a year before COVID, which in some ways worked out quite well.
You got a head start on most of us then.
Exactly, yeah. It worked out quite nicely. It was almost a year to the day almost. It was something like that I actually got made redundant before everyone else. Wow. So gave me a bit of time to sort of work out what I wanted. And so by the time the panic came around to COVID, I at least had something in place.
Yeah.
That then disappeared, but obviously had something to come back to. So that's kind of my route through travel and how I ended up sort of starting a representation company, or joining a representation, I could say, because I actually started with Ryan Ashton, who you obviously know well.
Yeah.
Runs Perfections of Africa down from Johannesburg. And then he messaged me to say he was looking to open a UK office, and we basically joined up as a 50-50 partnership, and here we are.
Oh, great. So, so what is... so in terms of, so you were made redundant a year before COVID, and then of course, found your way. And so when did you come into the Perfections Group? I mean, was it during or just before?
No, so I got made redundant in, I think it was the April, if I remember rightly. And then I was looking around for a similar job, another product manager job. But to be honest, there weren't that many about, and the ones that were about were paying fairly rubbish money. So nothing appealed to me.
Yeah.
But Ryan and I started chatting in sort of the June or July, and then the contract was officially started from the 1st of September 2019. We had about 6 months before COVID, which we did pretty well in. I've got to be honest. We sort of set a target of getting 10 clients by the end of the first year, and we were very close to signing our 5th as we went into lockdown. So 6 months ago, we were about to have our 5th client. So we were quite happy with how things were going.
Yeah, for sure. Well on your way to the target. And then, just like I've spoken about it with everybody else, how did, what happened when we all saw what was happening with all the cancellations, and then you just realize, those 5 clients are going to stay. Obviously, no one's going to sign up. So there were a lot of rethinks and sort of pivoting, as they say. Yeah.
Well, there's pivoting and there was stopping as well.
Yes, yeah. Pivoting or swirling. Yeah.
So as I say, I had 4 clients about to sign a 5th. So 3 of those 4 clients stopped straight away. Completely understandable, no hard feelings.
Yeah.
See those guys around all the time, completely get it. One of them, Tanganyika Expeditions, were very nice, still one of my clients now, and they carried on paying me initially, but at a reduced rate. But they carried on giving me a little bit of money throughout the pandemic completely, which is amazing of them. They are fantastic. However, I mean, what I did for the first month, you try and keep yourself busy. We were putting together strategies and reports on COVID and looking at ways, we could send information to different lodges or hotels and sort of say, look, this is what we think is going to happen. Obviously, looking back at that, all quite a big waste of time, if I'm honest. But after about 6 weeks, I just sort of realised I was doing busy work every day just to sort of justify in my head that I was doing something. And then I made the call just to stop. There was nothing to do. There weren't, as we all know, the situation. Don't need to go over it again and again, but there was just nothing to do. So I actually went off and drove a delivery van for Ocado for a few months, and then after about 6 months of doing that, I thought there were signs of life. So around the sort of September 2020, I quit that and came back to do representation and tried picking it up. And did that for about 3 months actually, and then by that point sort of realised it wasn't happening. We went into whatever it was, the 3rd lockdown or whatever we were in at that stage. So went back to driving the delivery van for a few months, and then after I got a bit bored of that, I worked on a building site for a few months, I think for 3 months, which I won't lie, wasn't an enjoyable time of my life. And then I became a postman. And to be fair, I did that for about a year. So that was really good because that allowed me to essentially do the postie delivery in the morning, and then any work that I needed to do, I could do in the afternoon. So that was quite an enjoyable time, actually.
Yeah, good. I mean, it certainly did teach us a lot about how to, with mental health and all that kind of stuff, how to process things that are happening, and that's what I think a lot of people learn. Do you think that you're a lot more kind of powerful in that respect now with what life throws at you and how to deal with it?
Well, I mean, you mentioned mental health. During, I forget the exact dates on it, but I got diagnosed with depression during lockdown. Yeah. And it wasn't all lockdown. There were other things going on in my life, and it was just an accumulation of everything. Yeah. So I ended up going to some counselling sessions, which were amazing, absolutely amazing. So I fully recommend it. If anyone's struggling, do go get it. It is superb. But I feel much stronger now. You do feel like you can sort of take on anything because, well, essentially, if everything stops and there's nothing to do and you still keep going, that says a lot about you. And I know, talking to my counsellor, she was saying a lot of her clients at the time were people. The struggle they had was keeping going. Yeah, they couldn't go, and they couldn't work out a way to keep going. Whereas, at least me doing the postie work and stuff, sort of, it wouldn't say kept my brain active, but gave me a purpose each morning. Now I feel nice and strong. I feel like I can do a lot. I've probably changed my outlook and my ambitions as well. I'm not quite as I'm not going to say I was ever the most driven person in the world. I never was looking to be the boss of $1 billion company or anything like that. But, now I just want to, see what's important. My Grace, we're getting married in a few months. We've got a 2-year-old, or nearly a 2-year-old. And I just want to have a nice life, a company that I enjoy to run, decent bit of money coming in. And so it's sort of grounded me a little bit and given me sort of a different perspective, which I think is good.
No, I mean, I think that despite what we all went through, I think there's certainly a lot of good came out of it. I've recorded over 30 of these podcasts now, and there is a general theme coming through of the resilience, and then also the camaraderie that I don't think we knew existed. Within our industry. I mean, we certainly did band together a lot. You started a fantastic WhatsApp group that's still going strong. Yeah.
I mean, I've always thought the travel industry is actually a really nice industry. It's one of the things, like when things were sort of in their darkest days in every respect. when I looked at other industries, or there were lots of people leaving the travel industry, as we all know. We know there's not enough staff out there for all the companies; they're all struggling to hire. But I could never find an industry that I had any particular interest in going into, whether that was for money or for happiness. I could never. It's why I never actually left, because I couldn't see anything more of interest to me.
Yeah.
But the travel industry has always been really friendly, and that's been one of my sort of favourite things about it. You do get on there with so many people. And when you go to the trade shows, or whether it's just the WhatsApp group, sending a message to each other for a little bit of support, or now just even to ask a question, there's not many other industries that are, it's so closely guarded. So I think this is a lovely, friendly industry.
Yeah, it definitely is. Do you think that, just in general, do you think that spirit of togetherness, that not just in the tourism industry, but just in humanity, do you think that's fading? I don't know. I'm starting to feel that it could be.
Oh yeah, no. I think a lot of that's been lost. I think just in the sort of the generalness of life, people have sort of, COVID feels for a long time ago now.
Yeah.
This is the weird thing. I talk to people every so often and mention something that's happened, and you suddenly realise that was like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel 3 years ago. It feels quite recent, but it was actually quite a long time ago. So I do think the general life is back to normal, or new normal, whatever you want to call it. And I don't know, you've only got to get on the train in London, and you'll soon see that like happiness has disappeared from a lot of people's lives.
Yeah. I know. I mean, there seems to be a lot of, you just want to say to people, like, you just want to stop people in the street who are, being rude or whatever, and say, look, what we've all just been through, it's a lot of businesses are still struggling. We know, we still see businesses closing down, who tried and tried and tried, and now they got to a point where they just can't keep going anymore. And that's still the hangover from COVID. And I think that we mustn't forget. I don't think anybody can get on a soapbox or whatever the phrase is and think that, everything's going okay now, and they don't need to be nice anymore to people. It's kind of disappointing when you see that happening.
Yeah, because as sort of simplistic as it sounds, it's nice to be nice.
Yeah.
This is, as I said, I've got a 2-year-old, and one of the things I want to teach her is how to be nice to people and to be nice to people. Obviously, there's always occasional moments you need to not be nice, but that's, we come across those quite rarely. But yeah, it is generally gone. You look at the road rage and things like that, but everyone's got their own struggles, and I think we all very much get into our own heads and focus on what's going wrong in our own lives, and we forget. COVID was lovely because we all could see what was going wrong. You could empathise with so many people because they were going through the exact same thing that you were going through.
Yes.
Give or take a few things. Now we're all just back to our own problems. And sometimes that takes over, but you just got to take that step back every so often and sort of see the bigger picture.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I enjoy the podcast, because it does make people talk about it a bit more, open up about it a bit more. It was a terrible time. I mean, a lot of people lost a lot of things.
Oh yeah. Awful.
And I think we just all need to remember that, particularly in the tourism industry, we all still need to help each other. And even if it's something as simple as opening an email, I do that now. Like, instead of just binning an email, I'll at least open it and at least try and read it and see if there could be something that may be of interest, because, it's just, why not? Of course, people who get loads and loads and loads of emails, of course, what the spams are. But if you know who the person is sending you an email, just take the time, read it. And, if it's not of interest, it's not going to cause any harm. But when you see that it hasn't even been opened, then I think that's what, that also is a bit disappointing, I think.
Yeah, and one of the things I do now, I don't say I sit there and do it every day or anything, but if I go on LinkedIn, for example, which is, my social media of choice, I don't really do the other one. And I see a post by someone I know, another rep, for example, because obviously we all know lots and lots of reps. I will like it or repost it, something like that. I probably wouldn't have done that beforehand, because I'm like, they're my competition. Maybe, maybe a client, maybe someone will see them and go with them rather than go to me, for example. Now I'm sort of like, No, I just send it out there. I was listening to one of your previous podcasts with Robin of the
Yes,
Track.
Yes.
She was saying about her Zimbabwe group. Every month they go all the DMC, and I thought that's just really nice. And actually gave me. I thought kind of want to do that myself.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's what we have done in our little community of reps. There's a lot of us who share the love, and we had a lovely meeting the other day that
we did.
Yeah, and on Zoom. And I remember doing the exact same thing during COVID. I mean, at once I think I had 30 or 40 people on a Zoom call from all over the world on and I called it Neptune's Tavern, and kind of every Friday afternoon we would it was like a standing invitation, 4:00 or whatever we knew that nobody was working or anything, so there it was, 4:00 on a Thursday or a Friday, whatever it was, and just log in, come in, the link is there, and it was great. So yeah, I mean, I think that's what I think we can't forget. I know somebody else in the podcast has said we can't forget. I think it was Sam Chatham who I spoke to, said we cannot forget the lessons we learned, and that really is important. I think just to keep up that spirit of help, and yeah, I mean, you and I have directly competing businesses, but here we are, talking and helping each other. So it's not about somebody hearing that you also represent your business in Uganda and thinking, let's contact Mark or whatever, and then I lose out. It's just, there's enough for everybody, and then let's just you win some, you lose some, and we it's that kind of attitude.
Because it's about working together as well. I know I've given you a couple of contacts or people who said something. I know you sent a couple my way, and it's just no one's losing. In fact, you're just gaining from it, because you're just building up your database, your connections, and this whole industry is about connections and relationships. There's obviously, technology is an amazing thing, and it helps us all connect, like we're doing right now. But this is about relationships, the whole travel industry. And there's only one way of doing that, and that's actually connecting with people.
For sure.
Actually talking to those people, and be that email, telephone, online, however you do it, it's building those relationships. And that's one of the most important things to do. And I think that's something COVID has helped to grow these relationships.
Yeah.
There was a lot of new relationship building after COVID, because of course so many people left.
Yes.
So a lot of great relationships were lost,
yes.
At least from a professional point of view, I mean.
Yeah. And I mean, have you noticed any change in the habits of the UK traveler now? I mean, you were a product manager, very, very focused on what people would want, what to publish. Is there a change, or pretty much still same old?
I mean, it's a little bit hard to exactly say, because obviously I'm on a different role, so I only really see what my clients are getting. And most of my clients now are all post-COVID rather than pre-COVID, apart from one of them. So it's a little bit hard to say. But generally, the feedback I'm getting from speaking to agents is there just isn't a pattern at the moment. So whereas before there was very clear patterns, not in terms of booking time of the year. And for example, so I did lots of different countries, but I looked at Africa was generally my main area for product management. So for example, it was always, if Kenya was doing quite well, Tanzania wasn't doing so well, for example, or vice versa. It always seemed one country was slightly more popular than the other country that year. Now, just everything's popular. People are going to, huge amounts of places. Like the same, East Africa might be more popular than South Africa, or then change back, but people are just going everywhere. And I think the hard thing is, at the moment, I don't think we'll actually get a clear idea of what the new norm is until the end of next year, because there's still so many people traveling this year who are just desperate to get away. It's still their first holiday since, or they're going back to see family wherever they might be, or they're doing some big holiday because they didn't do one for 3 years. So everyone's going everywhere, which is a brilliant thing, but to actually try and, I think a lot of the results this year won't necessarily tally up with next year's results, because next year we start hitting a new norm where people would have already done that trip, or they've done their big lifetime trip because they've saved up for 3 years because they weren't allowed away. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes, but I don't think there's a pattern at the moment. Everything's just and also just, the cost of flights or the availability of flights is also causing people to go from one place. They might have asked for South Africa, but all the seats are booked. So they end up going, literally could be going to Asia instead because they can get availability to those places. South America's building up. I used to look after South America as well. And they've got some really good numbers out there, but no one can tell, is that because people really want to go to South America, or is that just because they can't go to Africa, or they can't go to Asia, or the flights to Australia are fully booked? There's just no set pattern, but people want to go away. So, yeah, it's kind of a long way of saying I don't actually know.
Well, that's very good. You should be a politician. But it's I think we can't forget as well that the flights aren't back, the schedules aren't back to where they used to be. In particular, I'm thinking of the Durban London Heathrow flight. I mean, I caught that many times, and that used to be full 3 times a week, and that's not back yet. So as you say, the flight availability, and we say we're living in the new normal, but we're not yet, because there is still a lot of that happening. That's still COVID, still from the COVID days.
Oh yeah. There's still a lot going on. Like take that Durban route. That was launched like a year before COVID. It was
lovely, and I think a bit more, maybe 2 years or so. But it was very, very popular. And
I'm sure it'd be popular again if they redid it. I don't know why they're not. I genuinely have no idea. But in saying that, I also know I spoke to a couple of guys who work for airlines, and they were telling me about the number of orders that have been put in for planes. And they were literally, almost every airline has put in orders. Obviously, these don't come off the conveyor belt. It's not 20 planes off a day, but all the airlines obviously seem quite confident because they're asking to buy new planes. So by 2030, 2035, all these new planes are coming that way. So, that shows positivity, but yeah. I mean, it's there. People will travel. We work in one of the most developed, most traveled countries in the world. There's only 65. So it's about 75 million of us, but we spread ourselves. So
absolutely. But
dictates, but not always positively. But yeah, we spread ourselves out. So they'll always go if there's a way of getting somewhere. People will go.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't even remember the last time I went on a flight that wasn't jam-packed full, because that's what I think the airlines have started to do, just try and cut down on the good old days where there were empty seats and you could lie in the middle of the plane and have 4 seats yourself. Again, I think that's just the debt. There's a lot of debt. I mean, billions and billions of dollars airlines got into during those 2 years, and I think that there's a lot of payback. A lot of businesses still have to pay back that debt, and try and have to make as much profit as possible. So, yeah, I mean, I think we're definitely on the right track, and it's the gloom days are over, and we definitely all can see the light at the end of the tunnel now, which is much more than we did even a year ago.
I just did a trade show, Experience Africa, just 6 weeks ago, something like that, a month ago. And that's the first trade show I've been to since we sort of reopened. When did Britain open? About 18 months ago, something like that. Where I actually felt people weren't just there to just go and see people and get a bit of positivity and just to meet up again. There was actually we actually want to do some business, which I haven't always got to a trade show. And it was just really nice because, we were making new connections, or we were meeting with people we hadn't seen for a few years. And they were like, okay, cool, you've got client X, Y, and Z. We're actually at a position we can do something with that client, rather than just, it sounds great, but we've got so many, we're so busy because our team is so small, we can't do anything right now. People are actually going, right, let's start really playing. What do we want to do for 2024? What countries do we want to promote? Where do we want to put our marketing budgets into? Whereas last year it was just, I knew companies didn't do any marketing last year because they were just like, we are just going to take any booking we can get. We don't care where or what amount, whatever it is. Just someone will ring us up and we'll book whatever they want because they just need the money coming through the door.
Yeah.
Now going, right, okay, cool. So, my Uganda client, for example, they've gone, we've made a few new connections recently just because people are going, we would have loved to have done Uganda, but it wasn't it doesn't bring in as much money as South Africa in terms of volume.
Yeah.
So didn't focus on it. So it took a while it's taking a while to get, say, Uganda back out there. But now people are actually going, right, we want to do Uganda next year. So let's start working. Let's put an itinerary together, or let's go on a fam trip, or whatever it might be. And that's where the positivity is coming. It's not just great to be back. It's actually, we how do we spend our money on different destinations now? How do we diversify? We've got past the survival point. How do we take it to the next stage?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean that's I think what everybody's in now. It's like you can almost exhale, and you've kind of reached the bottom rung of the pyramid, and now you can actually focus on those top tiers of how to actually live again, which is great.
Exactly. You can be fairly confident your bank balance won't be zero or negative at the end of the month.
Yeah.
How positive is a different to entirely.
But so.
Generally, there's a bit of money. You don't have to make your staff redundant anymore. In fact, most companies want to take staff on.
They do, and and they can't find them. That's the one. That's the key. I mean, if you looked at LinkedIn, I mean, there is just. I mean, I also reshare and repost any of the jobs that I see, and there are just so many of them. So, anybody listening who is looking for a job, especially in travel. Just keep looking on LinkedIn and follow all the pages and travel pages and forums, and there are a lot of jobs going. And what about the future of Perfections Group, Mark? I see you've diversified now into perhaps taking on Latin America clients, maybe looking at that area.
Yeah, well, the original name for the company, and technically what it's still registered under, is Perfections of Africa.
Yes.
So when Ryan started the business, 18 years ago now, he was a rep based in Johannesburg, just repping companies in Africa, and then occasionally popping over to the UK to do WTM, for example, and those sorts of things. That's why I joined, so we could have a proper base here. And then we brought in another guy, a guy called Ross Catter. A lot of people know from Expedia, because he took him into Africa and set it up in a nutshell is what he did. And so the three of us now work together, and we changed the name to the Perfections Group. Because the Perfections of Africa is a good name. But when you get an Asian client come to you, they get a bit confused by the name. And, I know we certainly lost 2 or 3 potential clients just because they were a bit confused by the name, didn't quite understand and stuff like that. So, that's partly on us. We probably didn't explain it clearly enough and things. So yeah, we're looking now, we've changed the name to the Perfections Group, essentially so we can rep anyone from anywhere. We're not picky. We've got our set of skills, we've got our database of people, companies in the UK, and so whether I'm talking to them about an African safari lodge or a South American jungle lodge, it doesn't really make any difference. I've traveled to all these countries. I was a product manager of Africa. I was a product manager of Latin America. I've been a product manager of Croatia, Turkey. I even did Florida for a very short period of time. No real plans to go back to that one. And I also did polar regions as well, so I've been down to Antarctica. Not many lodges down there, but there's, if anyone's got an Antarctica lodge, let me know. I'll wrap it for you.
Me too.
Yeah, we just... Yeah, me or Graham, we'll fight that one out.
Or just build 2 and we can rev 1 each. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. But yeah, now we're just opening up, and the Perfections Group is we're just trying to do different areas, and I suppose people call it pivoting or diversifying. It's just expanding what we can do. The way I see it, if we have for example, a nice selection of African products and a nice selection of South American products, and maybe a couple from Europe or whatever it may be, that also opens up more doors to companies. So that will benefit our Africa client more, because we've gone to talk to someone about their South America one, and suddenly they're like, oh, and you do Africa as well. We're like, yes, we do. And it just opens up and gives more talking points and gets the ball rolling. But also as a company, we do, from our South Africa side of things, we do things like revenue management, and we can do booking offices and things. I'm not going to claim to be the expert on that, because that's definitely a Ross and Ryan side of the thing. But we do they can do their social media management. So we sort of see ourselves as a one-stop shop potentially. Well, not potentially, we are a one-stop shop for anything you really need within the travel industry to get yourself promoted. But my main thing from the UK is representation. That's what I enjoy doing. That's what I want to grow.
Yeah. I mean, that's perfect. And yeah, I mean, I've done the same thing. I have Cruiser Global because there was just so many different brands and you just have to keep it under one banner so that people know, and then it's all the different brands underneath it. So you can still have, as I think you have done, you've got your Perfections of Africa, your Perfections of Latin America, your Perfections of this, Perfections of that. And it's all just under one banner, the Perfections Group, which is great. Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense.
It makes it nice and easy. It puts it all in together. I talk about ourselves as a perfection group. I did a proposal yesterday for someone very much referred to us as a perfection group with just a list of different things,
different brands.
And then they can work out what they want. Some people want different. We've got some clients who have every aspect of what we do. We have some who have one. You don't have to have it all. We just work out what's needed, and obviously budgets and things like that as well, of course, come into play a little bit, sadly. We all do just a little bit of money at the end of the day, just enough
of course.
Keep the,
that's the that's the thing. When it comes to representation, there are so many costs involved in terms of if you're doing it properly. Train tickets, as you know, are like £100 a day sometimes just to get into London, and so and everybody needs we're not doing it just to cover expenses, we're doing it to live on as well. And the UK in particular is expensive, and
it's only going one way at the moment.
Yeah, and if you drive, then I drove to Scotland the other day, but then you may save on the train price, but then you lose out on a day of productivity because and so there is a lot of trade-offs. But yeah, I mean, I think that's why I think in terms of collaboration, I've come together with quite a lot of people in the industry, and we're looking at doing joint sales trips, obviously with non-competing product. And, you and I have spoken about doing Uganda evenings where, we've both got our products and we just do something together, because then, it helps with the costs as well. And we're not. Yeah, we're not.
So, I mean, that's the problem. Every client we speak to is very cost conscious. We're not working with, the big hotel group like Wyndham or something like that, who own half of America or something like that. Who've got millions and billions just to play with. A lot of the people we work with are just small family businesses, aren't they? In many cases, they've got one lodge or two lodges, and maybe it's been 2 or 3 generations, or maybe it's something they've moved into. These aren't necessarily people who are bankrolled, shall we say. And they're the people I enjoy working with more, because you feel like you're helping them. When it's just a big corporate thing, it's not quite as exciting in some ways, because you don't really know who you're dealing with. Whereas this way, you're seeing the help that you can actually give to the owner and her kids, or whatever it might be, is really enjoyable and satisfying in that way.
Yeah, of course, because it's small business to small business. Is I think another thing that's come out of the pandemic is people are buying local, and they're quite happy to even pay a bit more to work with the small business, and because it's just helping a lot of other people out. But yeah, I mean, I certainly think that the collaboration in terms of, joint road trips, joint sales trips, all that kind of stuff to keep costs down. It's the way forward. And I'm glad that people are looking at it more and more. And it helps on time, because if a product manager, you were a product manager, and you've got somebody coming in for half an hour, and then another one coming in for half an hour, and another one coming in for half an hour, whereas you can have all 3 of them in, and and everybody just, and then you can. It's probably saving you half your time.
Completely. I mean, I know when I first started this, obviously, like all of it, you start with one client, or you start with none, and then eventually you get one. And I know a lot of doors weren't opening because you've only got one to go in and talk about. So it's very easy to decide if they want you or not. At least this way, now we've got a handful of clients. Even if they not interested in one of them, they're interested in the other. So I'll go in and I'll talk about that one. And while you're there, you can bring up the one that they thought they weren't interested in, and you can have the conversation and you can find out more. And often it turns out they've misinterpreted it. So you've had this conversation, and the one they thought they didn't want, they do actually like.
Yes.
Having that bigger portfolio and those conversations just open doors, spread the word. And, you know, going in, whether it's with yourself or with someone else, it just allows more conversation.
Yeah, of course. And I just think that, everybody kind of needs to realize that even though everybody's busy, I think we do need to try and find time to help all small businesses get back on their feet. Whether it's a lodge or a hotel, obviously we know what's going to work and what's not going to work, and I don't think we would take products on that would just be completely wrong for the international market. So I just think those relationships, we just need to trust each other, and we're not going to waste anybody's time, and let's all just try and get together a bit more as much as we can, and fight the good fight, to all thrive again, because I think we're about 90% of the way there, getting back to where we were, but I just think there's a bit more work to be done for everybody to take that kind of, all right, we're back on our feet now. I think there's just a little bit more ways to go.
Well, interestingly, on that point, so there's a lodge that I know, which I've had a conversation with, and they're not quite ready to go yet. But when I originally spoke to them, they said, we're not going to sign up for a UK rep. We know the UK market is tough, it's difficult, it's expensive. We're just not looking to do it. And I was like, well, what are you basing? I'm not saying you're wrong, but what are you basing this on? And they're all talking about pre-COVID. And I was like, you were absolutely right. Because pre-COVID, it was repping was incredibly difficult unless you were established. Repping a new product was difficult unless it came in as something amazing, like let's say a Singita, which, when it opens on whatever it might be, people are going to leap at it. If you just had a normal, nice 3, 4, 5-star lodge, but wasn't like absolutely amazing, companies weren't looking at you because they had enough. They'd been dealing with the same ones for the last 20, 30 years. Which I've noticed since COVID. So after COVID, product managers seem a lot more open-minded. You can go to them with a brand new product. They're looking for a slightly different angle to what they had before. Now, whether that's because they were let down by their suppliers, or those relationships fell apart, or they just want something different to set themselves away from others. It's so much not easy to rep it. I mean, repping's changed completely, but in terms of getting a new product in front of someone, I find that's easier now because people will actually listen or at least read what you send them. So this woman I was speaking to, I was like, you were right. I agree. Pre-COVID, there probably wouldn't have been any point you coming to the UK market because I don't think you would have made any progress, even though you had a lovely product. Now you can take, within reason, almost any product, and there's someone there who will want to work with it, and they will at least look at it, where you wouldn't have got that before. So I think that is a big change in the industry, just open-mindedness.
Yeah.
It was pretty closed off because it's quite an old-fashioned industry in the UK. There's not loads of technology based around it. It was based, or is based on relationships, but those relationships were so in place, it was difficult to break them to introduce something new. Because even if, I know this from even my point of view when I was a product manager, some of those relationships may not have been the best relationships, say with the certain DMCs you worked with, for example, but at the same time, you knew them, and like better the devil you know type of attitude. It's like, you know how it works, and changing's a lot of effort, so we'll just stick with them. Whereas now, we both of us work with a couple of quite small DMCs, but we were making traction, which before that wouldn't have happened. That traction you've got, I don't think you would have that pre-COVID, because I don't think those companies were open-minded enough to look at the smaller ones.
Yeah.
I think.
It's true. Yeah. Okay, Mark. Well, I think that's about it for now. It's been great chatting.
I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's good. Everybody says they love it. It's like a little free therapy session.
That's true.
Let everybody else know. I'll put it up in the next couple of days. And thanks for joining me. And get back to your lovely little 2-year-old or nearly 2-year-old. And we'll check in a few months.
Lovely most of the time.
We'll check in a few months.
Not always love.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant, mate.
Okay.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for everything.
No worries.
I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, Mark. Bye.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning into KuzaCast, where we explore the world of tourism with leaders from all corners of the globe. Join me, Graham Watson, for future episodes as we dive into the latest trends and insights from the industry. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating, and we'll see you next time on KuzaCast.